Welcome to the CIONET podcast. My name is Hendrik Dekkers. I'm here today with Hanna Huber, who is a CTO of Flix Tech and the Senior VP Technology at Flix in Berlin, Germany. Welcome, Hanna.
Thanks. Nice to be here.
Hanna, you've been at the helm of technology for a company that has really reshaped travel, scaling from a European startup into a global travel tech leader. And for the past year and a half, you've been guiding a 500-person tech organization that powers brands like Flixbus, Flixtrain, and Greyhound across no less than 44 different countries. So if you had to pick one defining thread that runs through your career, and you've worked for big brands like Zalando and Otto, the thing that has really shaped you and the way that you lead, what would that be?
I would say what runs through my career is always being the person who translates between very complex tech topics and techies and the way how they communicate, and business people and how they view the world and what they need, and so a different communication style. So it's really like this complex topics, how to like translate them from to business and back and forth.
But you also have you're a doctor in communication, right?
Yes, although I originally studied design and electronic business. And then I had a PhD topic that I wanted to do. And then at the university, the communication science people took my PhD thesis on. And this is why communication science is then another type of study.
Okay, great. Now, if you look back, was there a moment early in your career that hinted that one day you would be driving a big transformation at this scale?
No, I don't think so. I can't recall. It's actually, I think I had rather some kind of fuzzy ambition. So whenever I do something, I'm fully immersed into that, and then I focus on that and do that. And at one point in time, it becomes obvious that maybe I've outgrown that or that has been reached. And then the next thing is around the corner, and then I'm excited to do the next thing.
Okay, super. So maybe, Hanna, let's start with some context. Could you describe us in a nutshell what it really is the business of Flix, the business, different business units that you have there, and its asset-light model that it's using?
Yeah. So Flix is active in 44 different countries around the globe, and we have Flixbus in most countries, and in Germany we also have Flixtrain. So I'm going to mainly talk about the bus business now. The bus business is an asset-light business model. That means that we have regional local operators that run the buses, but they are connected to our Flix platform, where we actually provide the technology platform, the marketing, and especially we plan the network. And we then also assign the bus partners to the different lines in the network so that we can also have a really great, let's say, offering to the customer. So not every regional service provider needs to worry, hey, what line am I offering? But we offer the whole network and they are part of that. And then, of course, they can be branded also as a Flixbus, and we then do the whole other thing and they need to drive it. That's basically our business model. So we are what at the core of our business is the network planning, which is really our big asset. Like, what lines do we offer? Which ones are profitable and which ones offer the best connections for the customer? And then also, of course, the tech platform, which does actually all the calculation and does the e-com and the contract and so on.
Okay. Would I be swearing if I would say that it's you're kind of the Uber of the line bus business?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
I could say that. I would not be swearing. I would be.
No. It's perfectly fine for us.
Okay, very good. And so over the last year and a half, you've led this major transformation at Flix Tech, the operating model and the transformation, and to support a new phase in the company growth. So, Hanna, could you take us back to the moment that this all started, and what was the spark that really triggered the transformation in your organization?
Yeah, I think from a business side, what triggered it is that the company had grown from startup through scale up and then to all these different countries and country organizations, and also Flix Tech. The tech organization had grown a lot. And at one point it became clear that a certain size and complexity has been reached. especially if you look at it from a tech side. At the start, you start building up products one after another, you solve business problems, and you can go really fast. But once you have a tech stack established, then you find out you have dependencies. There's not just, if you are a tech team, there's not just one stakeholder in the business anymore that you can directly align with, because so many projects have dependencies between different tech components, APIs, other business departments. And also, another thing then came on top, like I said, we have a small train business at the moment in Germany, but we are investing into that and will expand the train network and train business a lot. And that means then also that Flix Tech then has to support two different business models, the bus business and the train business. And train is not a bigger bus. It works differently, and then you have to also build different tech solutions for that. And that means that it became clear, not only do we have reached a certain size and complexity, have lots of dependencies, but we also have a second business model now to support. And with all this together, it was obvious, like, okay, maybe the current operating system that we have as a tech organization was equipped well for the past, like to get us there, but we might need to make some changes for the future to be able to address all of that.
Yeah, so you really had to change the operating model, the IT operating model, to follow the business operating model, and also you had to extend the product portfolio then, right?
Yeah, and it was also clear that after this rapid scale-up phase comes a phase where we need to go as a company to profitable growth. And profitable growth means that we have to decouple the tech costs and tech cost growth from the revenue growth. That's another challenge that we then had. And so at the same time, we had to do three things. We first of all had to like decouple the tech cost growth, mainly say, hey, now we have X tech costs per order, and we need to decrease that. So we had a target of reducing that something like 5-10%, something like that, like really getting the tech costs down, but not just getting people down, but moving people and then also moving our capacity into train teams that we are building up. So basically keeping the team somewhat stable, but within the team shifting to the emerging train business. And at the same time, we also have a normal running business that we have to support and where we have to like work on our apps, on our marketing, like whatever. So we still have to support the typical normal day-to-day business incremental growth.
So the assignment was do more with the same budget, right?
Yeah, you could call it like that. and keep the engines running.
So, Hanna, we know the core objectives was to reduce cost and keep the engine running and do more. But tell us a little bit, what is it exactly that you implemented? Was it a new operating model? How does it work? What's the role of architecture in there? And how did you implement all that?
Yeah. So a big question, because it wasn't just one thing that we did. So maybe I can just start by just chronologically what we actually did. So when I came in, I think first couple of months, I had an agreement with our founders and say, hey, I would just come in and I would not take any decisions, which is great because it gave me some time to just talk to a bunch of people. I talked to so many people in tech from all kinds of different job families, but also from all different kinds of levels, with teams, but also with lots of stakeholders. And what I did then is actually I like to write down concise papers and then just say, hey, this is what I understood, what we are facing, what the challenges are. Please, can you all tell me if I understood this correctly, or did I misinterpret something? Did I miss something, etc.? And I first did this with our senior management, and then I trickled it down to the senior tech management, and then actually to, in the end, 30 tech leaders. And we had several sessions where I said, hey, you can take it apart. You are techies. You all know peer review. So this is my document. Please take it apart and let's comment. And we actually need to work on this until we are all fine with it, so that we agree. And let's assume the document would be leaked to all of our Flix Tech employees and your name would be under it. Would you be fine with that? And that sparked very good conversations, because then people were picking apart every sentence, which I think was very good, because we were arguing, is this the right example? Does this really hold true in every case? Is this really the biggest problem that we have? Or is it maybe another one? And that was actually nice, because then with a group of 30 like senior tech leaders, we came to an agreement where we said, maybe not each of these challenges that we have holds true for every one of our teams in the same magnitude, but overall we agree that these are our challenges. And we had several ones, from how we do prioritization, how we manage projects, how we are organized, how we take decisions, how we handle legacy and some technical decisions, how we manage security. So I think we had a dozen different topics. And we also agreed that if we want to tackle these challenges that we talked about before, there is not one or two things that you can just do, and they are the silver bullet that just resolves all of that. And I'm a big fan of simplicity, but for example, in organizational structure, you need to have one, but it doesn't solve your prioritization problems if you have some, because prioritization processes solve prioritization, not an org structure. But still, we needed that for other purposes. So we then said, okay, which ones are the topics that are the most urgent ones that we need to do first, and which are also the topics that are highly interlinked so that you cannot do one without the other. And then we agreed okay, we have around 5 or 6 things that are really super important that we need to tackle. And these were definitely everything around prioritization and how we manage projects in tech and together with the business. It was around our org structure. Then along with that, the roles that we have, especially leadership roles and the roles of very senior techies. And it was also around how we manage our product portfolio and basically which things we do together. And that also links to architecture somehow. So these were the main challenges that we had. And then actually for each of those, we set up a group that went deeper into that, and then of course involved more people to come up with proposals, and then had a central working group with the most senior tech leaders to then also be able to take decisions and say, okay, this is now how we do it.
Okay, maybe that's interesting to unpack that a little bit one by one. So if we look at the project prioritization, because that was an important one, what kind of approach did you implement there?
Yeah, first we did an analysis and found, for example, that, the structure that we had before, there were teams, and teams were grouped into domains. So it was a domain-driven design, and each of the domains was designed to interact with exactly one stakeholder on the business side. Only that we found that this wasn't true anymore, because now everyone had multiple stakeholders on the business side, and everyone was talking to everyone. And everyone had a list of projects that they wanted to do, but they weren't aligned with the others. And we also had no people and no capabilities to actually drive projects. So these were the two main things that we found. And we then got together a group of people and also looked at how are other companies doing prioritization. Of course, I brought with what I had seen at other companies working and whatnot. We interviewed people from other companies, what they had done. We looked at what fits with us, did lots of stakeholder interviews, and then actually came up with what we called unblocking mechanism. So not just saying, these are our 10 priority 1 topics, because everything is priority 1, but we need a stack ranking. We need to say, this is the most important topic. This is the second most important topic, which is very hard for business stakeholders, by the way. But it's not to say we only work on priority topic 1, and when that's finished, we take the second one. Unblocking mechanism for us means that if in doubt, or if we have a resource conflict and the team needs to contribute to 2 of these topics on the list, they will work first on the topic with a higher priority to unblock that so that the others can continue working. So that is something. Now we have central topics like for all, and there's like 3 to 5 topics on the super overarching list that just trump everything. And then for each of our large divisions, we then have the same logic that just trickles down. That's one thing that we introduced. And then the second thing was that we introduced a new role into tech, because we had product managers, but we did not have any form of project management or program management. So we introduced technical program managers as a role, which is an industry well-known role. We introduced that one only with a few people. We started with 3 just to see, hey, can we actually run the super big programs, initiatives that we have that run across all of the teams. And that's something that we introduced that also works quite well, because now we have people who have dedicated time to only do that. And they are not the ones to take the content decisions, but they drive the decision making with everyone in the teams and then coordinate. And they are also the link to the business in case they don't know who to go to.
You told me before that you work with the concept of value stream mapping.
Yeah.
Does that fit in here?
It fits more into our organizational design. We use that for the org design. As said, we had these teams and then domains, and domains were vertical. That also meant that domains were silos. Like there was one domain that was then, let's say, about the whole ecom platform, but nothing else. And each domain was basically fending for themselves. Each leader of each of these domains was fending for themselves. And there was no real like overarching alignment. And we also found that some things were, let's say, strangely located. We had teams that had so many dependencies to teams in completely other domains that we said we need to have an org design that minimizes the dependencies of teams that are within one group. That maximizes the dependencies of teams who are within one group and that minimizes their dependencies to other organizational groups. And then we came to value stream mapping to really say what is, for example, the end customer journey, like really from we attract them to they land on our site, they search for something, they book something before the ride, after the ride, customer service, etc. And we did this for the end customer journey. We also did it for the partner journey, like our bus partners. And we also did it for the internal employees journey, like our internal employees, our finance colleagues. So we had all these different customer journeys and then came up with value streams and value stream segments. And that resulted actually in some surprises, because what we then did is, for example, we took the customer service, which was previously in our operations and supply side cluster of teams. We took these teams and moved them actually to the demand side, to the customer facing side, because it's customer service. It's about customer communication. So we grouped them together with our mobile app teams and with parts of our previous marketing teams, because they all handle the communication towards the customer. And they are now one stream that is called customer experience. And they do nothing else but focus on the customer experience when we interact with them. So this is what came out of the value streams. But of course, value streams is what you also use for, like, let's say, making processes more efficient and also attaching KPIs to that for product work. Like, what kind of outcome are you optimizing for? We group teams that optimize on profitability. We group teams that optimized on operational quality. So just to say, what KPI outcomes are they optimizing for?
Okay. So, Hanna, does that mean that you reorganized the structure of IT only, or was it a new operating model for the whole company, for business units as well?
As a first step, we did tech only. I have in my backlog, together with my business counterparts, that we will look at the role of product in the whole company, how we work together next year. So that is still on our roadmap.
Okay. Now, some organizations, and I've seen more and more organizations in our CIONET member companies, are organizing themselves in kind of tribes. Is that the model that you would go to, where you have different groups working, IT and business group working together in small, quite autonomous tribe groups?
Well, I think if they can work autonomously, then yes. In many cases, we find that they can't because they have so many dependencies to other tech teams. I think it works well if you have like smaller companies and smaller teams, and you have products that are a little bit more standalone. In our case, most of our core products are heavily interlinked. So the network planning is heavily interlinked with the dynamic pricing that we do, which is heavily interlinked with our e-com platform. So we cannot just say, oh, you just sit together with your business counterparts and think of something, because the alignment that we need is really heavy on that side. So we are rather optimizing for value streams, and then rather see that there is heavy connection and alignment with the different business counterparts, actually, for like business defining this is where we want to be and what high level we want to be offering to our customers. And then we need to be the sparring partners to say, and we have an idea how we can make a real great digital product out of that and consult you on how this could be done. So this is rather our model. And we also find that there are some things that are deep, like say technical topics where there is no real business counterpart as a stakeholder, which is security and compliance, for example. I mean, you can argue that there's maybe a CISO org or maybe there's a risk department, but these are not really the stakeholders of that, because security, for example, is really about the availability of our systems and how they are running. So it's much more of a business problem, I would say, but it's not really recognized by business. In any company that I've seen, it's more like, oh, there are some security people, let them take care of it. So there will never be like someone who says, I feel like the stakeholder. So we as tech, I think, need to have some idea of how we want to run this and how we want to run this effectively. And for example, for this group, we are doing this. So we have reorganized we have one small central team that does tech into we introduce a so-called strategic skill in our career framework for senior engineers, where they can pick one of three strategic skills, either security or data and AI or operational excellence. They pick one, and then these people form a group, and they are the ambassadors of that topic in their teams. And they then align as a group, you could say as a tribe. And they also have the mandate to take decisions on behalf of whole tech for all of us.
Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about the human side from such a reorganization. I mean, you talked about new roles. Does that also mean that people had to change a lot? And there's inherent resistance to change, of course. And did you have the right skills? That you had to reskill people? You had to bring in new skills? Tell us a little bit about that part of the program.
Yeah, we did heavy changes on the roles. Because we had a model previously where for every domain, there were actually 3 leaders. So one more from a overarching business perspective, one product person and one engineering person. And, but none of them had a mandate to really take a decision. So there wasn't one single threaded leadership. And we had a similar model on team level where we had people managers rather, who were rather enabling the teams, but we didn't have people who were really leading the team. So we had very indirect leadership and a more, you could say, democratized like way how things bubbled up, which is also a way how you can do things. And I think it's really great if lots of things come bottom up. But what it does is when you enter a phase where you have a more complex and a larger organization, someone needs to be able to take a decision. And you can't just discuss everything with 50 people and then hope that something emerges. Someone needs to be able to take a call if it doesn't emerge. So we did heavy changes on the roles. So we as said, regrouped teams, by value streams. And for each of these value streams, all these segments of value streams, we now have a single accountable leader who either comes from product or engineering. And then, of course, they get support from a complementary product or engineering, like very high expert person. But we moved that model to more single accountability. And we did the same thing on team level. So from people management to engineering manager, that's another big step that we did. And the third thing was that we had lots of staff and principal engineers. They were still rooted within teams, and we are actually moving these people out of the teams because we believe that team capacity for like operationally like building and running stuff is senior, experienced and senior engineers, but not staffs and principals. So they should be running our super big, high, complex architecture challenges and not be rooted within a team. So we get more flexibility from our best, more senior people that we can put to topics where we have the highest leverage. But it means that people who have been maybe in a team for a very long time are now like, oh, now I need to move out and now I need to go on kind of a journey. So especially for all the people in our organization who were very senior, this was in one way or another a role change, or they got a new leader, etc. So I would say, yeah, that was challenging for most of them.
So if you look, how long did this take, this reorganization from the day that I say, okay, we're going to implement it today, we have the plan, and then it runs smoothly?
Yeah. So the pre-phase when we did the evaluation and like this preparing everything, that was second half of was like Q4 2024. And then we started January this year with like, we'd say, okay, now we have 3 subdivisions and with this now we start, and with also the working groups, etc. So we've been working on this from January on, and until September, we rolled out beginning of October.
Okay. So you're now in full rollout. Do you already see the first results of this? Does it mean that it runs smoother? That you have, support works better, customer gets better served. Costs are getting cut. Can you show some first results of this?
Yeah, the good thing is that we didn't roll out everything with a big bang, but we rolled out in phases. So, for example, the whole model around prioritization and the technical program managers, we rolled out already several months ago. So we really see the impact, and we see the first programs that are running. We see that the prioritization is working. We have, like, with a new quarterly cycle, we see that this is running actually well and provides lots of clarity to teams. The org structure, is what we recently rolled out, and also the change of roles. But of course, people that over time transitioned already somewhat into the new roles. What I think we saw instantly is the moment someone is single-handedly responsible or accountable for an outcome of an organizational unit, their whole attitude changes. It's not like, oh, there's maybe also two others, etc. Oh no, now it's on me. So you see much more ownership, I would say. We also see that teams that we grouped more smartly together by value streams now have a lot of different conversations. Now it's not so much about, oh, do we move this app to whatever technology, but rather, hey, in the customer communication, our customer account, shouldn't we rather do this and that, regardless of does it move through the app or what other technology? We've also seen that we've cut during these discussions already some legacy before it started manifesting. We saw that, hey, some teams are just building stuff on top of each other and it's 80% similar. Why would we do this? Stop that. That was unpopular in the team at that time. And then more and more people saying, oh yeah, but maybe it wasn't so good that we were because we would have just more things to maintain. So I think there's always a little bit of resistance at first, and then we see it working. And from the numbers, of course, we know the numbers already, what we achieve with that, because we are in the budget. So the budget is ready. We know how many people we have, what the costs are also for next year. And what we see is that we were able to increase, for example, the robustness of teams. What do I mean with that? We had lots of micro teams with, let's say, 2 or 3 core members that were building stuff. But if I only have 3 developers in a team, I already am barely able to do 24/7, let alone if someone falls sick or churns, like the team can't deliver anymore. So we defined guidelines for team sizes for core team members, and we merged also several teams and grouped them differently together. And before we started, I think less than or roughly half of our teams were, let's say, robust enough. And now we are looking at 2/3, like instantly. And we could also increase our security experts coverage, like from before one team to now we have one person for every second or third team, actually, that is more like the security ambassador. So we see the first things that are actually happening.
If you take a step back and look at the whole process and program that you're going through, what would be the biggest challenge that you had to face in this? What was the most difficult thing to do in this?
I think there's one thing that is very cool about the Flix culture. It's really I would say, no asshole, no bullshit culture. And that leads to many people that have been there for a very long time, which is nice because people know each other, they trust each other, they know the systems, if we talk about techies. But it also comes with lots of people who have been there, and this is maybe their first or second job. They haven't seen that many other things. So it's hard for them to compare. And this also was true for my senior leadership group. So many like really cool, talented, good people, but they hadn't seen that much. And for them, they were sometimes thinking, yeah, we know that we want some change, but we are unsure of how to do it. What is the right thing? So I think that was the biggest challenge of working with them and then infusing them with like, how are things done in other companies? What kind of industry standards have emerged? What could fit for us? So I had to do a lot of talking with so many people and also just bringing in like external infusions, like getting them to meet other CPOs and CTOs from other companies and say, hey, how have you done certain things? What have you done that worked? What didn't work? So I think that was also inspiring for them. And I think then by setting up these working groups and just giving them more and more like ownership of it, it became more their own thing that they were driving. But yeah, it was challenging because if you haven't seen that many different things, you're just used to certain ways, and although you want to change, it's sometimes not that easy.
And that's then the value that you brought specifically, I can imagine, to the team, is that with your experience in big brands, big organization, and your experience in communication, that you could bring in that piece that was missing a bit in the company and the culture, right?
Yeah, definitely. And also just working with them. And I think most things you can also apply just, hey, let's just take it as a salami, like piece by piece. Let's first look at what's the situation. Let's break it down. Let's find a solution. What are the options? And then you figure out that for each of the challenges, there are 1, 2, 3 options only on the table that would really be feasible. And then in most cases, something naturally emerges and then people can actually see that it makes sense. But yeah, it's you need to take a lot of people with you on the way.
If you would have to select the 3 most critical success factor that has made this transformation possible, which are the 3 ones that you would select?
I think, first of all, acknowledging that the company and the people there have done great things and have got it really, really far. But also that the situation is complex and there is not 1 or 2 things that you can do and then it's all going to be just butterflies and all is nice. You have to just admit that there is some form of complexity and you cannot oversimplify that kind of complexity. So, and that is okay. And not everything that you do will magically solve everything, but it's rather a journey, and that we can also try out things. So this definitely, this was, I think, one big theme. And the other was talking with people in lots and lots of conversations and really deeply listen to what they had to say. And especially also sometimes technically super challenging things, because sometimes in a discussion around a specific architecture problem or a specific, I don't know, programming languages, you certainly then sort of feel, oh, wait, there's another problem that I didn't see before. So you need to take a lot of time to digest and just absorb and think about, okay, what is actually going on here? Are we maybe on the wrong track? And then also trying to involve as many people as possible, but also as few as possible. So I think we had around 15% of all of techies involved in this transformation at one point, who were in a working group, etc. But we also couldn't involve more. And of course, some people would have liked it to go faster. And then we say, okay, but we can only go faster if we just take top-down decisions and not talk to everyone. And some wanted to just go slower and involve more people. So you also have to acknowledge that you will disappoint people. You can't make it right for everyone. And you just have to take a decision on what you think is right in the end. And if you agree with a group of people who are driving it and you all think it's the right thing, and you just go for it.
Yeah. So I think you had to create quite a huge mindset shift, if you want that. So going from a culture of linear growth to one of technical scalability and organizational scalability. And so how did you get the main stakeholders on board? I mean, especially then the leadership group that you mentioned and that maybe was not yet confident in driving this transformation themselves?
Well, I don't think that you can come into an organization from external and just tell them, I think this is the situation, we should do it like this. I don't think this is true for me and for everyone else. I don't think I could have come in and just say, hey, I think this is the case and let's do something. I think the organization needs to have realized somehow before you bring in someone from external that there is something that needs to change. If they haven't come to that conclusion, it's, I think, very, very hard. And luckily for me, the organization had come to some form of understanding, hey, we do see that we want to like professionalize, grow, etc., all of these things. And we want to bring someone who can also help us do that kind of transformation. So I didn't have to convince people that we have to do something because they knew. I just had to work with them to figure out what exactly are the things that we need to do first, second, which magnitude, and so on.
And beyond the results that we discussed, what do you see as the long-term capabilities that this program has created and that will further transform Flix as an organization?
I think the biggest one is for my leadership team, that they now have the confidence to drive a change of this magnitude. I mean, it's massive. Like you transform a whole 500 people org. They have never done it before. Now they have done it. They can do it. If they can do this, they can do the next thing, which is great. And this will stick with them. I think this is the biggest win. And also that we see that we can do this on top of still continue to deliver, because the delivery of the teams was running all the time. So we didn't put a pause into that. And now they have the confidence, oh, we can do this while we are delivering. This is a great achievement. And every one of them now has their own like personal success story. Hey, I was driving this one and I was driving this working group. And now this person is known for achieving this one. This is really great. But also like some very mundane things, like we now have project management capabilities, which we simply didn't have before. Like it's now a running thing. We also are now able to prioritize better. We have phased out several products we also did this whole product lifecycle analysis, like which products could we phase out or put into maintenance mode. So we phased out several things, and not having to do that anymore also sticks with that, and just sorting this out. We have now better security capabilities because we just branched that out. And so I think that on so many levels, we are now equipped better. But I would also say it's a journey. So we are not stopping. And it's more like this. We'll be constantly now pick one or two topics each year that is coming, not having to do the super big transformation at once. But for next year, we know getting product management a bit better, working more on KPIs and measurabilities is already our next thing. So we already know what we want to do next.
Well, let's talk a little bit about leadership. I mean, to do something, I can imagine that now and again, you yourself had to step out of your comfort zone as well, right? So can you share an example where this transformation did this for you and what you learned from it?
Yeah, I think at first I was focusing a lot, of course, on tech, because this is like where I spent my first months, just to understand tech a lot. And I think the stepping out of the comfort zone was to talk much more also to business counterparts and see what they actually think is maybe going wrong or could be improved or is going well, etc. And then to figure out how much can we open it up to them so that they can also have a say in that. There was a little bit of a leap, and we then decided to especially include them into the value stream mapping, which was a really good decision. Was a little bit out of the comfort zone, because I think we could have done it quicker and easier if we had just kept it within tech. But then by doing it together with the business, they were also like, maybe on our side, there's also one or two teams that we might need to bring closer together from a value stream perspective. And then they were even on board, for example, saying, hey, you are moving the customer service from the supply side to the customer facing side, because business wise, these are different units. And they were like, why would we need to maybe do that? And so also for us, it was a little bit, we are opening now our process of how we want to organize to the business. It worked out in the end. So I'm glad that we did that.
Okay. How do you think you're perceived as a leader now in the organization? If I would come in and have a coffee and or sit myself next to the coffee machine and talk to your colleagues, people that you work with, what do you think that people will say about you when you're not around?
I think it depends a lot on who you ask and what role they have. I think the thing is, especially if you come into a role like this and you come from external, you are scary by default to a lot of people, because you come into a position of where you potentially have a lot of power, and people just see that, and they maybe don't see what kind of person you just are, and they don't know you that well. So of course, for people like within teams who don't know me that well, they may have a very different perception than the people on my leadership team that I work with on a daily basis. But if you ask my leadership team, I mean, they tell me directly, so they don't have to talk behind my back. They just tell me, and they
you have this, what was it? No bullshit culture, right?
Yeah, exactly. They would just tell me, and we have also frequent feedback loops, etc. So they would just be very open about that. And what they frequently would say, Hanna is just super structured, very focused, and has a very direct way of communicating and is sometimes too blunt. So this is what they would say.
Well, that maybe brings us to an interesting other question: is if you would not have done a career in digital leadership and as a CTO, what is it that what is the other thing that you would have done in your life if you were not in a digital leadership role?
Design. Actually, before I went into tech, I trained and worked as a graphic designer, and I just love good design. I decided then to simply because I just loved working with techies and I loved scripting and all these things. And but also what design has taught me is that you really need to think very hard because you have always limited space, and you need to visualize something in a very limited space, complex things. And nothing teaches you better how to convey a complex message in a very simple diagram or table or whatsoever. So it really trains your thinking on transforming complex things into very easy pictures. And it had, until now, what I do is sometimes I just draw something or I make a very simple list or try to break things down, etc. And it served me well. But if that hadn't worked out, I would probably have done that. Or would have become, I don't know, an app designer or something like that. So I would have done design.
Okay, never thought of design as having that function when making complex things simple. So very, very interesting. Now, Hanna, you're obviously very passionate about what you're doing here and about bringing change and creating a new culture and organization and so on. But what is it that drives you in doing this, and where do you get your energy from, both in your work and in your personal life?
It's hard to say. So I think I always had a feeling that, or let's say some neutral confidence that if I want to do something and I turn my focus towards it, I can do that. And I tend to find things interesting that I don't understand. So if something is very complex and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Let me think about that. So that's one thing. And then I always was, I think since I was 11 and my dad brought home the first C64, I was just into computers and gaming, and I love science fiction, cyberpunk culture. And I think this whole field, like also from a cultural perspective, is just really something where I tend to connect with people. And then thirdly, it sounds a bit odd, but I think I always had this feeling of never truly belonging, regardless of where I am or what I do. And I do think many people share that kind of feeling. And especially if you go into the tech world, and I think I can somehow understand and connect with people who all feel a little bit off, although maybe others don't even think that. And I think that's what I like with interacting with people who are a little bit quirky, a little bit different. And I just like working with these kinds of people.
Okay. Well, when you said I like doing things I've never done before, and I'm confident that I will be successful in it, made me think of Pippi Langstrumpf, right? So you remember that?
Yeah. Actually, was one of my childhood heroes. Yeah.
Interesting. Good. Now let's look a little bit more into the future. I mean, what do you see as in the organization the next big challenge and the next big opportunity that you're working on, that you're exploring?
I mean, it's obviously we need to get the trains running. That's the big thing that we just have to do. And then I'm not worried that we'll have exciting things around the corner. So I think my thing is always whatever the company or my role or my team requires me or us to rise up to, we'll do. So I think there are challenges that are coming ahead and that are obvious that we need to do from a business side or from a technology perspective that are coming up, AI things and so on. And we pick the ones that we think are the ones that we need for the business to run.
So Hanna, if another tech leader has to do a similar transformation tomorrow in their company, what is the pieces of advice that you would give that person?
don't think too soon that you know what the solution is. And if you think you have listened enough to people, take a month or two more and listen more and try to really understand what's going on. You think you have understood it, you don't. Like there's every stone that you touch, there's a universe below that, and go into one or two of these universes before you make up your mind.
Okay. And on that note, thank you so much for your time today. And I look forward to meeting you face to face very soon.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you.